All right, welcome to this episode of the Creative Permission Slip, where today we're going to be talking about the art of inner listening. So, what do I mean by the art of inner listening? I'm talking about that quiet inner voice that we all have that some people call it intuition, but it's that little voice inside of each of us that can give us some guidance, some clues, but it usually acts very quietly. And so you might wonder, how does this tie into creativity? And I think it has a lot to do with creativity. So if you imagine yourself getting into a flow state, doing something that you really enjoy and you're losing track of time, as you are doing that activity, as you are engaging, chances are you are connecting with that part of you, that inner part of you, that inner creative that is helping you to do the next thing, which color to choose, where to lay the next piece of fabric, how to combine the ingredients. Whatever it is that gets you into the flow state, chances are what helps you along the way has to do with your inner listening. And so I'm sure we can all kind of agree on that part that when we're in the flow state, which I think relates so much to creativity in general, our inner guidance is definitely working. There's like an inner compass pointing us in the direction of that creative North Star. But my question to you is, can you activate that? Can you interact with that when you're not in the flow state? And this is where we get into more into the topic today about adding some curiosity and starting to perhaps shift some perspective that you may not have even thought about before when it comes to this inner listening and different ways that you might start to use it, start to call on it, start to just tune into it. So there have been times, maybe I'll relate this back to driving, like with a GPS. So I'm guessing you've had an experience like I have, where you've got something plugged into your GPS or your Maps app, and it's telling you to turn a certain way, but something in you says that's not right. Even if you've never been to this location before, your phone or your GPS is telling you one thing, and something within you is saying, no, no, that's not right. And you listen to your inner guidance, you turn the way that it's telling you to go, and you arrive to the destination. And you get there and you go, hmm, I wonder where my machine, my map app, was actually going to land me. And you've probably also had a similar situation happen where you have tuned in to your inner guidance and you haven't followed it. And then, for example, maybe you end up in a traffic jam. Sometimes it's nothing detrimental that happens, but your inner guidance was letting you know that there was an easier way, there was a path of least resistance over here if you would only listen. So, one of the ways that you may kind of grow this muscle, so to speak, if you're interested, would be to start to pay attention and even journal. A lot of times, what I do with my clients and with myself is keep a pattern journal. So when I start to notice a pattern, if there's a pattern that I'm working with, for example, a habit that I want to add or a habit that I want to take away, I keep a little daily pattern journal for at least a week. 30 days is great though. But you could also use this idea of a pattern journal to just keep track of any inner listening that you're doing and how it turns out. So, on this podcast, I am never going to tell you to just take my word for something. I'm going to invite you to experiment. So, I would put this through an experiment. And the reason I encourage you to write it down is because our mind can play tricks on us and tell us that maybe there isn't a pattern when actually, if you're keeping track for a week, you start to notice that, oh, maybe it shows up at a certain time of day. Maybe it shows up around a certain topic. Um, maybe when I do listen, I have gotten a positive outcome, whatever it may be. And so that is one of the first tools that I would invite you to play with if this is something that you would like to get a little more curious about and see if this spurs on anything around your own creative permission slip. Another thing that I really have enjoyed myself with this art of inner listening is paying attention to my body. So I have had a pretty kinesthetic experience. I really learn by doing hands-on activities. I also really feel very in tune when I'm moving. I feel like my body, my words, my emotions, and my breath can all flow together when I'm moving, and certain things can come to me. And maybe you've noticed that for yourself. For example, when you're out on a walk, you might get a download of a good idea. You might be able to process something that's kind of been just looping around in your mind. And so this movement can be a great way to tune into your body. Also, you could start to listen and as soon as we become aware, so just the fact that I'm saying this and you've heard it can mean that you now have awareness around this. So when you start to notice something going on, for example, with your knee, this is one area of my body that I can tell for sure when I have been eating something that doesn't agree with my body, it shows up in my knee joints. My knees start to ache. But if you start to tune into your body and perhaps keep a little journal, like I suggested for the other activity, and notice if there's a pattern with where things show up in your body, listening to your body wisdom, what your body might be trying to tell you, what it needs. That is another way of using the art of inner listening. And doesn't that just sound creative all on its own? When you watch kids, they tune into their bodies a lot. In fact, I had a professor once, um, so I studied health and physical education along with art education. One of my professors in the health and physical education department said, kids are their bodies. So if you want an example of this, just watch. They tune in, they make changes because of what's going on in their body. They stop, they give something some attention, they rest when they need it, they eat when they're hungry. Kids are really into that inner listening of their body. So, if that sounds of interest to you, that could be another experiment that you may try for your own creative permission slip. And lastly, I would just make a suggestion that is not, will not take credit. I will give credit where credit is due. This is a Julia Cameron morning pages exercise where you just free write. You don't worry about punctuation. Doesn't matter what topic you write about. You could set the timer. You could give yourself, she suggests writing for 3 pages, whatever works for you. Give yourself an outlet and just see what shows up. Sometimes there's a message for you in your writing. Other times it's just that you are clearing your head so that you can go into your day with a fresh perspective and then see what kind of listening happens for you. So, my friend, here are some questions for you today. Should you choose to work with them? When was the last time you heard your own truth without second guessing it? Hmm. What signals does your body give you when something feels aligned or misaligned? And last question, what might happen if you let yourself follow an impulse to create today? And there you have it. Until next time, thank you for listening.